On air, online, on demand. Watch AFR when you want, where you want with CN8, the Comcast network.
I'm Art Fennell. As always, thank you for joining us for the report. We'll begin today with the latest on the developing international crisis involving Russia and Georgia. The rhetoric on both sides is now reminiscent of the Cold War, and some are fearing that that's exactly the direction in which this conflict could be headed as well. The U.S. is being pushed to choose between its stated ally of Georgia and the international powerhouse, which is Russia. Here's correspondent Elizabeth Manresa with the latest on the Russia-Georgia crisis.
Georgia's Interior Ministry says the country's police have begun returning to the strategically key city of Gori. Forces are leaving. Georgian troops had retreated from Gori under heavy fire from the Russians. The Russian presence in the city raised concerns that Russia would not make a quick pullout from Georgian territory. Wednesday, Georgia accused Russia of violating a ceasefire deal. Moscow denied the claims. Russia's actions were condemned by the United States.
Russia's ongoing action raised serious questions about its intentions in Georgia and the region.
Secretary of State Condoleezza Rice said Russia's military moves were reminiscent of the Cold War.
This is not 1968 and the invasion of Czechoslovakia, where Russia can threaten its neighbors, occupy a capital, overthrow a government, and get away with it. Things have changed.
Rice is headed to the region to reinforce the United States' commitment to Georgia. The conflict has strained U.S.-Russia relations, with Russia's foreign minister challenging the U.S. to choose between, quote, a real partnership with Moscow or its relationship with Georgia. Georgia, a U.S. ally, is counting on U.S. support.
It's not about Georgia or choosing between Georgia and Russia for the United States. It's about choosing whether the U.S. is willing to stand up for freedom.
Now, U.S. humanitarian aid has already started to arrive in Georgia, where thousands have been misplaced. In Washington, I'm Elizabeth Manresa.
Our Washington insider, April Ryan, is joining me now to talk more on this. April covers the White House on a daily basis and has been monitoring the very busy developments playing out from Washington on all of this. April, yes. We just heard from Secretary of State Condoleezza Rice in that report, as well as President Bush. You were there in the Rose Garden yesterday. What's the latest on your end?
Well, the latest is the Defense Secretary will be briefing everyone as to his mission. He's dealing with the military efforts on the humanitarian assistance to make sure those deliveries go through, as well as the delivery of medical supplies to Georgia. Now, the White House is trying to speak with one voice. You're not going to hear a lot of voices on this because it's so complicated, Art.
Yes, I want to get back to the humanitarian supplies for just a minute. The United States often sends in humanitarian supplies. They don't always reach their intended destinations. Does the United States have any guarantees, or did they address this at all, that the supplies they're sending in will be able to get to the Georgia people, or it might be intercepted by the Russian forces?
Interesting you would say that. President Bush in the Rose Garden made it a point to say that Russia needs to honor their commitment to allow humanitarian supplies to get to those who are in need in Georgia, as well as the medical supplies. Now, after that, the Rose Garden event with the president, I walked into Dana Perino's office, the White House press secretary, and I asked her, I said, Dana, look, I said, what if, I mean, that was a big question. What if it doesn't happen? They didn't answer that out in the Rose Garden. So I said, Dana, what if this doesn't happen? She said, we have to wait and see. I said, well, if we wait and see and nothing happens, what happens? She said, April, we do not operate in hypotheticals. And that's what they always say. That's the word. But Art, when it comes down to the issue of what next, they're saying diplomacy, but you know, what's hanging overhead is the elephant in the room. If Russia does not, will there be some kind of military action, especially in that Washington Post op-ed piece where the Georgian leader was asking for Western peacekeepers to go in?
Well, and I want to read that statement, April. I have the statement from Georgian President Saakashvili. He says this, he says, I have staked my country's fate on the West, speaking of the U.S. and others, rhetoric about democracy and liberty. As Georgians come under attack, we must ask, if the West is not with us, then who is it with? If the line is not drawn now, when will it be drawn? We cannot allow Georgia to become the first victim of a new world order as imagined by Moscow. That from Mikhail Saakashvili, the Georgian president. Tough rhetoric. He's basically saying, U.S., if you're going to be with me, then stand up and show me. That's basically what he's saying.
But, you know, in art, it's a sad situation right now. Russia really has the whole world at its beck and call because, one, let's take Europe, for instance. It's complicated with Russia's relationship with the world. Russia and Europe have a very interesting relationship. Russia provides a lot of the energy, meaning natural gas and oil and things of that nature, to to European countries. Now, as far as the U.S.'s relationship with Russia, it was somewhat strained before going into this, but now it's very much strained, and that's why you see
strained, but still cordial, though, April.
Yeah,
you have
strained,
to admit,
but
they've
cordial.
been very cordial. It hasn't been any, at least, outward animosity shown on either side.
Look, President Bush had then-President Putin at his ranch, okay? But still relations were strained, especially when the U.S. went to war with Iraq. Iraq owed Russia money, and Russia did not want this to happen. So there was a bit of a strain there, but it's more so strained even now because of America's alliance with Georgia. But here's one thing you have to take into consideration, Art. We, the United States, are fighting the war on terror in Iraq and Afghanistan. And unfortunately, there is a thinness in the U.S. military. Now, if you were to ask the White House, they would say, oh, yes, we're always poised and ready if something were to happen. But they really do not want to go that route at this time.
Sure. Well, the book is still out on the new Russian President, Medvedev, and yes. Russia is certainly not Iraq when it comes to trying to stage aggression
major
against
world
them.
power.
Yeah, major world power. April, we're all monitoring this, and we'll continue to do so. Thank you. We'll see you again.
Art.
Okay?
Bye-bye.
All right.